Hi everyone, right? Welcome to our meetup for Ansible, right? So today's topic is going to be around event-driven Ansible. I am Anthony Lin. I'm the hybrid cloud specialist from Red Hat. I'm covering ASEAN. So I have with me Li Ming behind.
Hi.
Uh, Public sector lead, right?
Yeah,
I should
that's
say
right.
that. Covering Singapore, right? So I have Jing as well. Jing is going to be the one doing the demo later on. He's the consultant, right, from Red Hat, right, also covering ASEAN. So, um, Derek, right, you guys probably seen him earlier. So, he's also another solution architect covering Singapore, right? Okay.
We already kick off without you already.
No need. I was asking him. Anyway, just feel free to stop us, or if you have any questions, comments, feel free, right? Just to let us know. Hopefully, this session is going to be useful for everyone. What I intend to do for today is that we will kind of go through what is event-driven automation, followed by talking about the event-driven Ansible. Right. Right now, it's in a developer tech preview state. It is going to be GA in the next version of Ansible automation platform, basically, right? So we are expecting it to be GA in the Red Hat Summit coming this summer, right? Somewhere in May, June timeframe, you should see it GA. And of course, we are going to look at some of the stuff on how you can actually download the information to use this particular tool if you want to, and some of the roadmap. I mentioned about demo, right? Jing is going to be doing the demo later on. We are going to make use of Kafka, right? As well as the Ansible for the event-driven portion to kind of look at how we can detect whether certain packages are installed and how we can make sure that it reaches the desired state that we want it to be in. So I hope I'm audible to everyone, right? If not, I will take on the mic, right? If you need to, let me know. I hope I'm loud enough. Right. Okay. And of course, we'll end off with a Q&A, right? Any questions, comments, feel free to let us know. All right. So I'm going to start with this slide. Basically what we are seeing over here in the research that was done in September last year is saying that 20% of IT processes will be automated right, within the coming year. So you can see over here that automation is really something that is pretty much adopted by a lot of different companies, right? And more is going to use these processes and all these automation strategies and all this stuff over the coming year, right? And we are expecting a large numbers. In fact, there was another numbers that shows the number of automation architects is also going to increase quite significantly in the coming years, right? So that is how this whole trend is moving on, and hence why automation is important. You can see over here that from Red Hat, we defined event-driven automation as the ability to collect intelligence, right, analytics, service requests for IT solutions, right, to automate some actions so that the activities can take place in a single motion. So the demo later on, we will kind of see how it can detect and then take an action, right? So that is what will happen, right? And that's how we intend to do this using event-driven Ansible, right? Which does this event-driven automation itself. So what are we trying to achieve in terms of the goals and the focus of the teams, right? So definitely, I think some of these things are not unfamiliar for you guys. We talk about things like speed, consistency, and innovation, right? So ultimately, we are trying to achieve consistencies with automation, right? So that we can do things faster, and hopefully the time that we save can be used for doing other more innovative stuff, right? And that's how we are really looking at how we can transform IT accordingly. So when we talk about things like different layers of automation, right? So you can see over here that we have what we call as the tactical automation. We have things like process automation as well. I'm pretty sure, for a lot of people, things like security patching, right, is something that is being done on different levels, right, within different organizations. These are things that can be including, for instance, doing patch upgrades for operating systems, or it can be integrating with things like Tenable Nexus, or doing VA scanning, fixing problems, your CVEs, and all these things. And of course, in this case over here, for advanced automation, we are really looking at things like your AI ops, event-driven automation, right? How we can automate at the edge, as well as in the multi-cloud scenario. Because more and more these days, we are seeing that customers are moving their workload to the public cloud, but they also have workload that's running, locally on-prem. It's important that the automation tool that you're choosing allows you to be able to do the automation both on-prem as well as in the cloud. And it should be able to handle different scenarios. It can be running on VMware, Nutanix, right? It can be running on things like your Hyper-V, it can be running in Azure, Google, it can be running in Amazon, right? It should all work. And the other stuff that you start to see more and more is this, AI ML stuff that we talked about. For instance, we spoke quite a fair bit about AI ops. I mean, we did a recent event with Elastic together with Jira as well, right? On how we can actually leverage on AI intelligence, right, to predict or to figure out that a certain action is needed to restore or recover a system. So that's again something that is being used quite a fair bit. The edge computing use cases is becoming more and more common these days, especially in larger countries. Of course, in Singapore, maybe it's a bit smaller, but we are seeing increasingly more as well, right? How you can actually manage. Just think about this. Let's say your Wi-Fi access point, if you want to upgrade, right? That could be one of those use cases that can be done. And we are talking about huge malls or maybe even airports that's leveraging on all this automation itself. So these are areas in which we can actually look at. And some of the suggested paths towards event-driven automation maturity, right? So you can be seeing this like level 1. How do we automate a service and response, right? Or it can be things like analyzing tickets, root cause reports, right? How we can actually expand further on the sources, the rule book actions. We will take a look on some of those things later on, right? And then roll out things like your self-service to business tenants, and eventually go towards things like the AI ops or ops as code self-service kind of concept, where we are able to send curated event data right into AI ML, doing modeling and proactively uses the predictive models to fix problems and to feed data back to it to keep on learning the process itself. The way that we see it, I'm not sure whether you guys heard of this project Wisdom that we are actually working on as well in conjunction with IBM. Really what we are looking at is how we can leverage on AI to address specific needs of enterprises. So that is something that is, pretty interesting as well, that can be combined together with things like the edge automation that we are talking over here using event-driven model, right? So those are things that we see as how you can mature when it comes to the event-driven automation. So this is an example of a manual workflow. We are trying to remediate an issue on a managed system. I'm pretty sure for people doing, operations, right? You probably are familiar with how things are usually happening within the organization, right? You have an event that indicates a failure with a certain monitored system. Then you try to get IT staff or people to fix it. It's a very long process, right? You are getting people to come and resolve the issues. It can be taking hours, or it can even be days or weeks, depending on what is being worked on, right? And finally, the system is restored. But if you were to use event-driven workflow, right, you can actually have a shorter mean time to recovery. And what's going on is that we can have third-party tools that can do observations. We may be watching or monitoring streaming data. We can identify the event and then try to figure out the signature that we are trying to recognize and to route it for remediation by doing the evaluation. And after that, we are able to then automate a resolution to fix the problem. This is often much faster than just relying on the manual method. And of course, in order to be able to do all these things, if you talk about things like AI ops, you probably will need inputs coming from the operators who are working on the things on the ground, right? We call that tribal knowledge, for instance, right? So how we can actually combine all these different knowledges and then put in the systems that will run and work by itself, rather than having individual people who understands a certain part of the systems to come together and fix the problem. So that is really how we are really looking at how we can shorten the whole time by leveraging on all these different technologies and techniques. This is one of those things that was being done for a financial services customer that we have. We are able to patch 90% of the system without human intervention, just by using automation. And you are being able to then manage 10 times the number of servers each. Again, we are talking about customers who have very huge footprints that just by using, for instance, human itself, it's going to be very difficult to be able to just manage and fix everything without increasing number of users who is working on this thing, right? So this helps you to save time as well. So we now go into the developer preview, right, for the event-driven Ansible. If you look at this, where we are coming from is different areas on how we can automate decision-making, how we can leverage on different sources of events and implement an event-driven automation that will be able to help us to achieve much more efficient way of doing things in terms of delivery and cost savings. Right, so what are some of the key building blocks in event-driven Ansible? We have certified sources, right? So we will have to define where the events are coming from. So we are consuming all these different events from all the different places. Okay, sorry. I have about 20 minutes or half an hour before I hand over, so I think it's still okay. So we are able to define where the events are coming from. We have source support that comes from Prometheus, Ansible, right? You can also do things like webhook, or you can do Kafka. So what we are going to show later on in the demo is to leverage on Kafka as the event source, right? Of course, you can also do custom source plugin, right? Depending on what you need. We can try to create a new plugin in Ansible, right, to allow you to be able to do the integration. Other things that will come on is this ideas of having rules, right? So rules are basically conditional structure for describing when the actions should happen, right? Based on what we call as the Ansible rulebooks. We will take a look at how that structure will look like in the YAML definition in some slides down the road, right? And of course, with the rules in place, with the sources, right, getting the events, and after that defining the rules, we will then be able to perform a particular action. Depending on what kind of action you want it to be, some of those things could be something simple, like just creating a ticket in ServiceNow, for instance, right, the ITSM system. Or it can be to restart a service, or it can be just to install certain packages if it doesn't meet the criteria that we're looking for. Right, so these are the key building blocks in the event-driven Ansible. And we use this to kind of create the rulebooks as well as the action that's needed from an Ansible playbook perspective to fix or resolve an issue. So of course, we talk about why we need this, right? It's talking about things like being able to have real-time multiple sources feeding into the system. And then we will be able to also have this ability to act on events, and we have rules that is pretty, depending on whether you want to do something simple or complex, it can be quite easily created right within the YAML. Of course, ultimately over here, we are talking about things like the Ansible automation platform, whereby we can have everything built on top of the platform. Right now, it's not fully integrated yet. We are still in a tech and developer preview phase, right? So essentially what's going on is that we are enabling, right, Ansible users to have one more tool in their toolbox to be able to do things like, event-driven automation. So what are some of the quick wins, right? You can see over here that these are some of the use cases that we think can be applicable for event-driven Ansible or automation, right? Whatever you may be calling it. The whole idea really is that it can be, used for doing things like collecting facts information, right? It helps you to augment the service ticket. Let's say you detect a problem and you need to collect information about the environment, right? So this can be what the event-driven Ansible is able to help you to. we may be needing to update infrastructure awareness on events, or we are just doing things like compliance and drift management, right? So those are also possible. When it comes to remediation, after we know what the problem is, we will be able to then help in, let's say, fixing the problem. Let's say a parameter was changed and it causes an outage. We can reverse the changes using Ansible, right? And try to fix the issues. Excuse me. Other things that can happen, right? We talk about things like the user management. So, for instance, if you have to reset a password because you forget the password, this can be pretty mundane stuff that can actually be automated and done by humans. I think you mentioned about the certificate rotation, right? So those things are also something that Ansible is able to help. We do have customers also looking at integrating with AWS Certificate Manager, for instance. We have modules and all those things that's available for you to trigger and call, right, to do those kind of actions. So that can be falling under user management, for instance, right? Other areas, right, we talk about many different pillars within the IT landscape, right? You have things like networking. We can be doing basic troubleshooting for networks. We may be collecting information for the network devices. Infrastructure-wise, we are able to do things like, making sure that the compliance of the systems is there. Edge, right? We are able to remediate, for instance. Security-wise, we are able to, for instance, automate the collections of logs or to turn on the debug traces, for instance, and to escalate events for human intervention. Cloud-wise, very simple things like triggering the cloud asset to check for instance creation events, right? So those are things that can be done, for instance, right? Application-wise, very similar. We could be doing something like enriching the healing capabilities of applications to try to recover any applications that may be in a state that we do not want it to be in. Restarting certain processes, checking for certain vital signs, and then fixing the problem, right? So those things are all possible. So if you look at it, how the rulebook actually looks like, right? We are saying that the events itself are processed by a rule engine, right? So it's triggered based on the conditions, and it's organized into what we call as a rulebook, right? So the rules can be applied to events that occurs on the specific host or groups. If you are familiar with Ansible, you can see over here that the construct is actually very similar. And so what's going on over here is we are still using the same YAML definition. We have the name, the host. In this case, we are targeting all the target hosts. So what we are saying over here is that this could be specifying to just a particular kind of host, right? And the sources itself, we are using Alert Manager as one of the source plugin that we have. It's listening on a certain port, right? In this case, 8,000. And what are the rules? The rules will be to just restart the web server, right? If we hear this particular actions. So the conditions itself, we can also set it. These are very similar to what we have within Ansible construct. So this is an extension of what we are already doing with Ansible. The action itself is running a particular set of playbook that will fix the problem that we are facing. So Jake later on is going to show you, how we can use things like Python, regular expression to kind of pull out certain events, right, within Kafka and then try to remediate the problem. Right? So it can be many different kind of variations that we can do from this perspective. So then in this case, again, the conditional management, you can then trigger different type of actions. Right? It can be running a playbook, triggering a module, or just spanning an event to an event handler, right? So those are all possible. We are saying that the current users can quickly learn and use the rulebook writing. So in this case, this is what we are trying to achieve over here. So if you look at it, essentially the playbook itself is going to, if you run an Ansible playbook, it will just do something, right, and stop. But over here, we have the rulebook that is waiting for a particular event. It decides what to do before it triggers off a playbook to perform the action. So that's how this particular flow is actually looking like. The event stream can be coming from many different sources. We saw just now, it can be Kafka, it can be a webhook trigger, it could be something else, right? So it can even be something custom that we have written. It doesn't really matter. Those can be done. So what are some of the event source plugins that we have today? Right. So the ones that we have coming from our partners, like App Dynamics, Dynatrace, I think some of you guys probably are familiar with this kind of APM tools, right? Application Performance Management. We have this kind of integration with Dynatrace, for instance, for quite a while. Some of the use cases that we did with large US banks can be with Sensu, whereby they use it to do monitoring, for instance. So we have all this kind of partner source plugins that is allowing us to consume events that's coming from these sources and make a decision on what we want to do next. The other stuff that we have today, of course, the open source plugins itself, Kafka, which we kind of spoke about, pretty popular these days, right? Webhooks, right? Any system that triggers REST API, we will be able to integrate with it. And of course, there are other things like, whether we have, URL tracking and file, for instance. The roadmap for integrations, we are looking at how we can actually add things from the public cloud as well, because we mentioned as well that we want to have something that works not just in the private on-prem environment, but also in the hybrid multi-cloud scenario. And in this case, we are looking at Azure Service Bus, AWS Event Bridge as the source plugins that we can use for Ansible itself. So if you look at it, the execution layer, right, without the messaging layer, later on we will see that there will be one more box over here in the next slide that just talks about if you use Kafka, you will see it over here, right? So source events, you can have App Dynamics, Dynatrace, for instance, and then we have the different source modules, which are basically, if you look at it, the rules itself, right, and the automation will be the actions. What are we trying to achieve over here? Are we trying to, update a ticket? Are we trying to restart a process, a service, or what are we actually trying to achieve in this case? So this is the structure of how this thing actually looks like. If you add a message layer, right, for instance, Kafka, then it will just pick up from the queue, the message bus itself, right, and then perform an action based on that. So these are how the system can be integrated from a block diagram perspective. So if you look at the different components over here, right, what do we have? We have the playbook creator, right, writing the required playbooks, putting into Git repository for the source control perspective. Then we can have someone who is just doing rulebook creation. You can see those as, of course, this can be the same people, but we can say that, well, they can do it independently and still get it to work together because we're just calling the playbooks. And whatever that's running in the playbooks doesn't need to be something that the rulebook creator knows. He may or may not know the whole construct, but he'll be someone who's able to create the rules as needed. Right. Then over here, the event-driven Ansible server is using Python API. We have a Postgres database. Then they have this Ansible runner that's running the particular action and getting the events from, let's say, the monitoring tools that we were kind of talking about earlier on. And so those are the different pieces that can come together to form this whole solution itself. So over here, right, it's quite similar to what we showed earlier as an example, but it's just different conditions, right? So what is the event type? In this case, a directory being modified. So this event talks about a directory being modified. And then what we are doing is that we are running a playbook that will restore the folder permissions according to what it should be. And so that's what the first rule is doing, right? The second one talks about how we can check whether a file has been modified. If the file has been modified, how do we restore the permissions for the file? And of course, the last piece over here is just talking about, event output defined. Then we'll just treat the particular event that is being processed. So then you can see over here that we really are looking at how we can process the event based on different sources, and then just have the actions triggered once the root conditions are met. So in this case, this is talking around ServiceNow ITSM integration, right? What we have over here is how we can update the ServiceNow CMDB in this case, right? So for instance, we are trying to trigger the EDA to make sure that it is able to update ServiceNow when a certain event happens. It could be that we have provisioned a new server, right? Or it can be that we have decommissioned a server and you want to update the CMDB, without using ServiceNow. For instance, in this case, we are just saying that we can use EDA to go and do this updates of the ServiceNow. And we have certified collections or content with ServiceNow that allows us to do native integration. And that can be done quite easily over here. So how do you actually get started, right? So, like the first thing that you have to do is we will, of course, need to have, in this case, we need Java, right? We also can do a pip install on the Ansible rulebook. Right now, it's not GA, right? So what you do is that you do the Ansible collection install command to get the Ansible EDA collections so that you can use EDA itself. Right. After which we will install it, and then we will just be able to just run the installation itself. So how do you actually learn more about this? We do have a very simple hands-on workshop that can be done or used by anyone, right? So you can just go on and then you can just start an environment that has EDA running inside and just play around with it. We can send you the link after this as well so that you can play around with it. We have webhooks, we have Kafka, right? Those are things that can be done, right? So you will then be able to configure the monitoring sources, build your own rulebooks and start listening to events, right? So those are different resources that will be able to support your learning. We will be sharing this guide, after the meetup as well, so that you can take a look at this. So, of course, if you have any questions, if you feel that this thing is not doing what it's supposed to do, feel free to send us feedbacks. Right now, it's still in a tech preview, developer preview phase, so we are just accepting different suggestions from the community, right, to work on this. Of course, if you're partners, then you're welcome to send you the other link. And 3 ways to share feedbacks. Of course, GitHub is always there, right? You can put a comment, you can raise a pull request, right? Can attend our office hours, or you can send us an email. These are the various resources, right? On what can be done over here. Blogs. This is the self-paced lab that I was talking about earlier, right? So those are things that can actually be used over your case. And that is pretty much my last slide before I hand over to Jim. Any questions from anyone? What do you all guys think about this? Yeah, go ahead.
Interesting fact about integrating with ServiceNow.
Mm.
So, is there any provision at the moment for automating change implementation? Let's say I want to start a change, run that upgrade.
Upgrade of the Red Hat machine. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Ansible can quite easily upgrade the Red Hat machines. We have the
Let's say my change window started. So, can there be an API integration from ServiceNow calling the rulebook to start the change?
Yeah. It can be probably through the webhook in that case.
How to say that? Here is a new feature about the event driven. So doesn't mean this event driven is suitable for all the scenario.
I think you did. Okay.
Okay, so the tools is not say new tools, new feature is best. Your tools need to select suit for your use case. For example, you are the ServiceNow, you say ServiceNow, right? ServiceNow, you need to think about how to integrate with this event driven. So for your ServiceNow, most likely is the change management, the ticket management. Then you are the start time. When you do the start time patching or something, it's already be pre-approved or somebody approved it. So that may not is the best suitable case for event driven. But I think was the maybe a few months ago we do some project in other customer. They have a similar issue with you. Issue is the Ansible is generally Ansible is the configuration tools. It's quite common to see is do the patching work. but something is Ansible is not enterprise time scheduling tools. We have think about workaround using the API to meet customer requirement in certain way, convert to the time scheduling tools. If you are interested later, we can discuss it for, we have done that. This is the one case we have done for other customer. If you are interested later, we can discuss it. So main things is event-driven is good, but you need to think about which was the use case you are using it. They may not suit for you. Something is suitable just now is the security or some event, you need incident. You need you real-time immediately react to it. But something needs to have non-logic improvement. So that may not suitable. Event-driven is a quite fast response, but the problem is how to track it. You get it? So based on your use case, that is the, how to say that, is suitable feature, suitable tools is good one.
Thanks, Jim. Any, yeah, Chandra?
Okay, so those roles, action items, is it coming with the model or we can write our own customized action item? I mean, how it coming with actually bundled together?
So definitely there will be some default out of the box. It's very similar to how we work on the Ansible, that you can definitely create your own custom as well. So there's nothing stopping you from doing that.
Okay, so is it going to bundle with the 2.4 or?
So right now we are it will be the next release, yes, 2.4. Issue GA at 2.4.
Okay, so this one in order to run, does it have any specific version? You know, any limitation or anything 2.1 onwards, I think?
No, it's basically we are just waiting for it to GA. So once we reach AAP 2.4, it should be there. So essentially this May, you should see it coming. So it should be able to just work with correct. Right now it's not. Right now that's why today we are only going to show the CLI way of doing it. But the enterprise version will be ready in next 3-4 months. Yep. That's it. Okay.
This side is okay?
Size okay? The size okay?
Okay. I should be stand that side, but here easy for me to see. Sorry. Yeah. So I already logged into the view. This is my Kafka server. So Kafka server, Kafka is help me to generate event queue. It's a producer. The Ansible is the event-driven. Rulebook is consumer. The first things I need to start up Kafka queue. The Kafka queue, first things I need to start up the zookeeper. Okay. Okay. Okay, yeah. So first things let me start the zookeeper. Okay, next. Go this side. Next one, I need to start up Kafka.
not doing good. It's doing bad.
Oh, that's all.
Now together and the Kappa both started. The third step is I need to start up a topic and the collection. This collection was the link over the YAM log file into the event string.
So with that,
Okay. Let me restart it. This is very good. Okay, this one actually this is a produce side is finished. So next one I directly using some the Kafka program to test the consumer side. This one step 4. Step 4 is directly using Kafka as the command script as a consumer. Later we are using the Ansible as consumer. Then I tested is a if. This one actually is the he monitored this file is the monitor log file. Actually monitor this log file. So every time have a new line is the attached to this log file, they will generate one new event in the event queue. So we try to oh, oh, okay. Okay. So this time I will try to manually adding one new line to it. So see if can was the link to the event string or not. Look at some problem. Let me go back to see the behind producer is correct or not.
So what are you monitoring? Sorry, what are you monitoring?
We're monitoring the use case is the in some we working in some company we found it some company is the package is doesn't allow to install it. So this use case is that they monitor DNF.log. That was a package log file. Once they found it, some package in the blacklist, there is a driven event to automatically remove such package. I think this one. Collection is stop. Oh, I put one extra 9. Yeah. Hey. I can stop and do something. Let me try to restart the bookkeeper. Oh, wait. I think these two configuration file is standalone and the file resource property. And the broker inside. I think maybe I need to have this one have some broke. I don't know why they always have a dash in between. This one is the step 3. Okay, because just now always between, I don't know why. When I do the copy, have the pipeline is between. What was the issue? So then let's go back. You see, this one is come out test. Let's do again because just now the problem is all command we start the zookeeper to start the Kafka, but once it's not things, link the log file to the event string. That's one, I don't know how the copy or something have pipeline is between. So now we can do again. So for example, I was the equal You see, this side, this one have a new line put into the log file. Then he convert direct go to the event stream. So this one is tested all within the Kafka. The link the log file to the event stream. Next step is we're using Ansible to consume such event.
So basically, he was setting up the structure earlier. So it's all running within the virtual machine that he has.
So the command is quite simple.
So this was what we have earlier, right? We ran a pip install. So that's what Jing has done in his environment.
Okay, this started. We now we try to because here we assume telnet is the package is in the blacklist. Assume someone install telnet in some server. So this one, when they run the YAML install command, they have the log writing into the DNF.log file. So once they have something writing into the log file, this log file will redirect to the event stream. This event stream listened by the Ansible. Ansible try to find out the event that was installed telnet. Once he found it, he triggers some playbook to delete this package. Later, we roughly go through the playbook. You can get more inside view. Now you get some feeling. So this right side, the already install finished, but left side is still doing some analysis, still working on it.
So are you trying to install the telnet in the Kafka server itself?
Yeah, in our demo, this small one we install on the Kafka. In the real one, you can install whatever you want to monitor the server. You see, this event is what I look for. Timestamp, installed it, telnet. So here, actually already deleted already. We can see here. We see now it's not installed, it's available package. So this one is we're using Kafka event string linked to some log file. Then this log every single line is pumped to this log file, attached to this log file. Then we'll go to the event. Event on the other side, no matter where is it, Ansible listen this event string. Once they found is a predefined event, they will take related action. So this is this demo. The next one, let's go to the more deep, see the playbook, how it's running. So here is may have two, one is run book, one is a playbook. This is run book. So this run book, the first part is the listening, this resource, listening on the event. So we know I was listening on this Kafka server. This is the port. This is the topic name. This is topic name. So this topic name is all the log is a redirect this topic. So from here, they try to listen it. Once they found it, they will trigger this playbook. Then let's look at what is what it is inside this playbook. Okay, this one is the in the when is the event is coming, all the content in this case, it was in the event dot payload, exactly the content. So from here, then once I get this content, I was simply was using the Python command to first things this searching pattern. So just now I show you the searching pattern. First is timestamp. This timestamp. Second keyword is the debug. You can see this one is this one is making more was how to say it is more robots. So here is no matter how many space is there, using this one /s plus. Then second keyword debug. Then is the sum no matter how many the blank space there. Next keyword installed. This one is really I want extra out the package name. So from here is we're using the IE search, using the pattern, I get out the name of this package. If they get it, go to this step. If not get it, that means the no package installed. So once I get it, so not all the package is in the blacklist. So once I get it, this is a newbie trying to see is package in the blacklist or not. If it's inside blacklist, I bring out I set up this was variable is true. That means this package founded and in the blacklist, and this print out the package name. So this this whole thing generally help me to detect event and extract out useful information for further handling. So once we're doing finish this one, next one is quite simple. This one is just now already have this one is a true or false. So once this is a true, they was deleted package absent. So this one was including this was a package name. So generally, this is how to do it. Second is for other side is you also here have two key things. One is link the log file to the event. Second is this side, Ansible side, listing it. Define the event, extract out useful information for further handling. Another side I didn't show, maybe let me show you, is about was the link the log file to the event string. So generally is in this here. So this one is core connector. So connect this was the file resource into as the event source. So this major have some more detail. I write some the blog. If you want it, you can go. You can view that for the whole setup. All this a demo setup. But this is two things. So these two is actually frankly I most likely feature is that we have more tools to handling different automation user cases. So without this one before it, we more likely, although Ansible is quite useful, but the structure is more like a traditional structure. We need the whole workflow. First step, second step, we make it automation. With this make over the automation is more how to say that easy to grow up. You can think about it. Actually, for the source side, they only produce event. They don't care about who consume it. In the automation side, they allow to listen on this event. They don't care about it in your side, how to produce it. So both sides can was the working independently. You can think about this event, you can consume for yours, also can consume for others. For different team, for example, different team all need this kind of information. If a traditional way need this information flow to this department, this information flow to this department, both depend to each other. If with event structure, actually they in certain way they decouple it. You can develop your automation is not too much depending to others. The resource producer side, you don't care about too much how you was using the consumer, how to work it. If all the way at least you are the producer side, or although we always say or REST API is what the quite convenient, but you still need their side, produce side, to insert your REST API into their code. And the REST API will have different job template. Your job template is changing, also affect them. But if with this one, as long as they throw the information to the event string, they don't care about the whole consumer it, how to use it. So they can make your whole development is faster and less dependency. But case by case, also is case by case. It's not all the use case should be it, but at least this will open a new way for us to think about automation. So have any question for this demo?
Actually, I just wanted to point out, right, that I mean, we are doing on a single VM, but typically for enterprises, you probably will have, things like Elastic, you will aggregate all the logs, and then you can send to Kafka, and Ansible can then pick it up. So we are just trying to show that it works in this kind of a single VM setup, more of to show the how this thing actually works, right? So definitely, it can be expanded into much more complex use cases in the real life scenario. Over here is really just to give you all the key features of what can be done, using EDA in this case. And of course, in this case, we are looking at the files, which we mentioned as one of the possibilities as well as a source, right? Leaving anything that you want to say?
Maybe just probably just add to what the both gentlemen have said, right? It's really at the end of the day, it's about event-driven architecture, right? Event-driven architecture means that an event is happening. Where that event is coming from could be of any sources. And today, I think Jing demonstrated is a single VM, right? Single VM, somebody is consuming the logs files and producing an event into Kafka and Ansible acting on it, right? But the reality is that a lot of time event is not just from logs. It could be from a system, it could be from IoT devices, or it could be from anything, right? But what is more important is what is inside the event message that is typically produced, typically passed through Kafka, right? Today, we all know that Kafka is an event streaming software, right? It handles a lot of messages per second, right? Then Ansible take effect of what is produced effectively on the message itself, right? So think about the use cases and how this can unlock potential use cases, right? Because a lot of times today, we are all in the event-driven world today. Something happens and you take an action on top of it, right? And in Jing's example is that somebody installed a unauthorized package. You could be probably not uninstalling the package, right? Because in reality, you wouldn't uninstall it. You probably would log a ticket in your ServiceNow, for instance, and say that this is a incident, right? Somebody installed a unapproved packages, you probably will have the information of who did that or not, right? And then you react upon it, right? The reaction could be then yet another event to do something, right? Think about the use cases, right? Because I think this is where the next part of automation is going to be, right? It used to be we trigger something or some system triggered, right? But think about this is like a kind of further abstraction. It's event-driven. Serverless is all event-driven today, right? Just probe your thoughts a little bit on how this can, make better use of automation, right? It's no longer very manual. No longer people go to AAP to say that I trigger a playbook, right? It's all event-driven, and this is where we want to be in the next future, right? And Anthony, you mentioned that it's going to be GA in
summer. So May.
In summer. Singapore has no summer.
Alright.
So about June, July lah. right?
No,
So I think you probably hear a lot more about this, and I think Anthony also mentioned about Project Wisdom,
correct.
right? So Project Wisdom is yet AI.
It's also AI driven, right? Basically, we are working in conjunction with IBM. So I think a lot of people saw ChatGPT these days, very hot and all these things.
Right? You have seen ChatGPT writing an Ansible playbook. Who has seen that before, right? ChatGPT writing
I think
playbooks, but it's not going to replace our automation engineer for any time soon. I'm sure.
So the biggest difference, right, between Project Wisdom and ChatGPT really is the context. So we are really looking at how we can use that in enterprise settings, something that's more customized towards what the customer environment is, rather than just a generic automation. So that has more usage. Hopefully, we can share that maybe in the next meetup. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, because right now it's really tech review, right? So it's a lot of
Correct.
command line.
It's
a lot
all the
of
command lines
stuff.
and all these things.
But as we
Yep.
go further along, it's going to be integrated with AAP. You see that whole full suite of solution coming soon. Right. So maybe in the next meetup we can show once it go GA in summer or fall.
Main,
Right.
right? So that's what I'm hearing from the product unit. Of course, you will see this in a much more packaged version pretty soon. We wanted to show you this because we think that event driven is the next wave. I mean IoT devices and all these things. A lot of promises that can be done, right? So this will be one, and definitely Project Wisdom is another one. How you can actually shortcut the way to write a playbook using AI, right? So that is what can be done.
Anyone you heard about I think IFT, right?
Mm.
Which is a home
IFT.
automation where
Yeah.
you heard about it, right? So all of this, imagine all linked together. It's some automation at the end of the day, right? So that's the kind of use cases that we're thinking about today.
Yeah, and in the future, especially for your cloud, your container, actually in the future, in the IT environment is more and more dynamic.
Mm.
And you quite difficult to find like the traditional IT, what is first step, what is second step. A lot of like the microservice or like this one, actually a lot of is the difficult to define the sequence. And the too dynamic for you to define the generic procedure how to handle it. A lot of time is this one is the user scenario for even the stepping. Because too dynamic.
Okay.
I think we're all good. Any questions?
Comments.
What do you see? Just, right. Okay, I think you can stop recording really, James.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
No. Any questions? Any comments so far? What do you see in your use cases? I think that's what I'm interested in about hearing from you guys.
I just want to know how far it will be useful for IoT.
I'm sorry?
Like how far it is related to IoT.
How far is it with
I mean, how far it is useful, like currently we are using AWS for the OTA purpose. And is it similar to that?
I think it's different. I think the lady is talking about AWS OTA, right? IoT, right?
Yeah.
And in a OTA, when you say OTA, it's over the air,
Yes, for
update.
the updates.
Right? I think it's a little bit different.
We typically go through a controller, like to update all the IoT devices. We don't go to, because we need to use things like REST or REST API or things like SSH. So typically it's via the controller. The controller will push down the changes to the target. Unless one of those more interesting things that I saw in the past was they have this kind of billboards that has Linux installed inside. Then we will be able to manage those systems.
It could be agent to install it because suppose our company has 1,000 pieces, 1,000 boxes to do all the 1,000 boxes at a time to do that. So in each box, which means in each box has a Ubuntu Linux. So you'll have an agent in that, like.
It doesn't have an agent. So what's going on over here is, I mean, of course, in this case, it's event-driven in the sense that it's listening to events. But in the normal cases, it is a push architecture. So what will happen is there is no agent installed, but we can do SSH and then we can check, for instance, gather the facts, which is the information relating to the system, and then we can do things like an upgrade on it.
Because at the end of the day, it's still Ansible, right?
Correct.
So Ansible can.
It is regarding to the SSH. Suppose like my the bus was out of sometimes in some regions there was no system. like, I want to update one. Like the update is in the meeting. If there is no internet, the SSH will connect out, I mean, will disconnect, like come out, right?
Okay. So if there is no internet, then yes, then we'll have to wait until, or rather, if there is no network connectivity, it doesn't necessarily has to be internet. It could be a private network as well. Like for us, it's just layer 3. If I can reach you, I can reach you via IP, TCP.
It will wait until it got connection or.
Right. So we have other things that is not really mentioned over here, which is things like the automation mesh that allows you to set up a remote worker node that is nearer to the clouds. So that can be something that can happen, and for that, we are using. I mean, the automation mesh itself is a bit similar to the SDM WAN, WAN kind of setup. Then you will be able to just use that remote worker to patch the nodes that's near to it. So that is how we handle multi data centers, different clouds, and those kind of environments. There's also this thing called the hop node that it allows you to get into, let's say you only have certain environments that can only get through via bastion host or jump host. That is also possible. So we can have that remote worker behind the jump host that will manage the target that's inside. But of course, you still need the network connectivity. Yeah, and it can be a scheduled kind of stuff.
We can have that discussion.
We can have a discussion offline as well. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions from?
So who's now the left node? Are those the messages that are sent to the Ansible server?
We are reading the message, and then once we see the message itself inside the Kafka, we will run the.
So those are the messages which are sent to the Ansible server?
The reason on each. This is the event.
So Ansible is the consumer of the
The
Kafka
reason on
messages,
that one.
right, and it's processing the Kafka messages.
Correct.
Right, so
It's
the
just
message
listening
can
to all the
be
messages.
text-based JSON format or whatever format you use.
It's a JSON file that we typically will send through.
Yeah, the listener is actually quite a small playbook. Only listen that one. So using the last memory. Once they found the event, they trigger the related playbook.
Yeah.
If it produces the whole long chain, it may be a bigger, it's a bigger playbook, it will keep it inside memory. But now only listener is inside memory. Only listener. Once event is coming, they trigger related.
So you think of the listener like about any other Kafka consumer.
Yeah.
Because a Kafka works as a pan, a producer and a consumer.
Producer, consumer. In this case, we are just consuming.
Right, and then triggering yet another playbook to do the actual intent based on what's in the message.
That's the logic of the question.
Yeah. Okay, current scenario.
I'm sorry?
Whenever we want to execute any playbook, if it's in the command line, we execute command line, whatever the YAML file executes on so forth. And for the give scenario, same thing. We are executing the same way. And going forward, what we on the left window, what you run is the rule book, right? What's that rule book command?
It's an Ansible rule book command.
So that particular rule book always have to be up and running, or it will go and execute whenever there is the event happen trigger, or
It keeps running.
Right.
So
Keep
you
running
can
always.
continuously, in this case, the consumer will continuously consume.
That is the
That's the one it's listening into the.
Into the
Yeah,
Kafka
yeah,
messages.
It's the Kafka.
okay, in that scenario, let's say if we have too many roles, because organizations have too many roles need to be followed, right? Everything should be up and running at the real time in order to make it work. There could be 1,000 roles, right?
1,000 rows.
I mean, could be based on the use case scenario.
Oh, yeah.
Each and every one have their own scenario. They have to, they have their own rules. So everything have to be running on the control node. I think if I'm not.
Most likely it's going to be something that, I mean, as in right now, I have no visibility to how it looks like in the AP, but most likely what's going to happen is that it will be maybe a playbook or job project that's running or workflow that's running in the background. So you just continuously run.
I think it's subscribed to a particular topic, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, like the Kafka topic. Then on the Kafka side, you have the consumer groups and I think the partition.
Yeah, I mean, Kafka is one example, but use case could be,
Can be anything.
Can be anything, right? So each and every tool or whatever they are trying to be, whatever it is, it could be a specific rule up and running. Always.
For the use case,
Right,
that's
so there should
Most
be
likely it's going to be visible in the controller. Because just now we saw the architecture was that there's a React UI that allows you to, and then behind is a Postgres database, right? So that seems to be talking about the controller.
So I'm just thinking about future, troubleshooting scenario. Whenever there's anything specific happen to that particular role, we have to identify which,
Oh, okay.
the PID.
Escape problem.
Yeah, so I think the controller or AP will give you that.
You should be able to see everything from
Should say that,
central location.
because today is Kappa, right? The slides we talk about webhook.
We talk about webhook, we talk
Things like
about
that, right? So all the
URL, we talk
integration
about files,
We'll do from the console and stuff.
the data trace, and all these things. Right? So those are the different sources.
Yeah, looking forward.
We'll know more when the thing is created. Right now, it's more of a tech review. We just wanted to share with the team over here.
Any other questions? All good?
Okay.
And where's Derek?
All right.
Derek runs only again.
It's okay. Then we can close.
It's okay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coming. Right,
coming.
and we will see you at the next meetup.
Yes, yes, yes.